Hello everyone, welcome back to Just Math. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a polynomial equation from a graph. The first thing we need to do is identify the x-intercepts. These are the points where the graph crosses or touches the x-axis. Looking at the graph, we can see that the graph crosses the x-axis at x is equal to 2 and touches the x-axis at x is equal to 3. That tells us that our factors are x plus 2 and x minus 3. However, we're not finished yet because we still need to determine the multiplicity of each factor. Multiplicity tells us how many times a factor repeats. There are three main behaviors you should know. The first behavior is when the graph crosses straight through the x-axis. If the graph crosses normally without flattening, the multiplicity is usually 1, which is an odd multiplicity. The second behavior is when the graph touches the x-axis and turns back around without crossing. Whenever this happens, the multiplicity is even, with the most common value being 2. Let's apply that to our graph first. So at x is equal to 3, the graph touches the x-axis and turns around. So this root has a multiplicity of 2. That means our factor becomes x minus 3 squared. Now, there's one more type of behavior. Sometimes the graph doesn't cross the x-axis normally. Instead, it flattens out before crossing, creating an S-shaped curve. This tells us the multiplicity is an odd number greater than 1, with the most common value being 3. Looking back at our graph, this is exactly what happens at x is equal to minus 2. The graph flattens before crossing the x-axis, so the root has a multiplicity of 3. That means our factor becomes x plus 2 cubed. Now, our final step is to find the exact value of a. To do this, we use another point on the graph. So the graph shows the y-intercept at 0, 64. So we'll substitute this point into our equation. Replacing x with 0 and y with 64, it gives us this equation. Now let's simplify. 2 cubed is 8, and negative 3 squared is 9. So now we have this. So now we multiply 8 by 9 to get 72, and we divide both sides by 72, and simplify it to 8 over 9. Now finally, we substitute this back into our equation, and this is our final polynomial equation. If this video helped, please consider liking and subscribing for future math videos.